America, a land that had its beginning in the very dawn of creation. A land that is water, earth, and air. Whose history is written in fire, etched in a veil of twilight. Heard in the silent thunder of glaciers and spread by the wind. A land where the daring and courage of man has carved a giant country out of these ancient elements. A land both scarred and graced by the mark of man. Our heritage is here, in this land. Soft, sweet winds ruffle fruit of plain. The vibrant drums of sea stroke the shore. Glacial chords strike muted bass, and crashing cymbals of molten flame burst from earth to shatter mountaintops. Lava sprays flow red through the land, while forging their return to the sea. And what beauty has been created to color and soften this land? Lichen threads through rocky crags to mellow, sullen worlds of stone. Blossom carpets, velvet feet of white-browed peaks. Green-laced boughs reach out to shelter verdant lands, or soar aloft to buttressed skies. The giant sequoia. 40 million years ago, the forebearers of this tree had already taken root in our western soil. God's first temples were here before the age of ice, and long before man had crossed the northern straits and begun his time-long journey in this, our land. These cathedrals of nature stand stately and silent, always ready to offer the tranquility of their cool green world to all who enter. The awesome beauty of Mount Rainier stands as a silent witness to the many and varied ages of this land, from its fiery beginnings as a lava-spewing volcano to its present calm. From its age of vegetation, with carpets of alpine flowers and majestic groves of towering fir trees, to the age of the glacier, a dramatic reminder of ice-locked lands, rivers of ice that smothered plant life, moved gigantic boulders, and etched valleys and riverbeds into the plains, and then slowly began to melt away. After thousands of years, these vestiges of the Ice Age have retreated to the bleak sanctuary of mountaintops, where they remain in uncertain rest, perhaps awaiting the dawn of another Ice Age, when they will again dominate this land, and join forces with the mighty rivers that flow through the land, and help carve yawning canyons of unsurpassed beauty, whose rocky barrenness captures the shifting moods of nature, in blues and reds that streak canyon walls in a spellbinding array of color and shadow. Nature has carved this land with a majestic splendor. Grand Canyon, a gorge ever changing into new depths of beauty and color. Incredible Yellowstone, a land of geysers that leap from the seething forces buried deep in our earth. A land of bubbling mud pots. A land of hot springs that cascade over terraces sculpted by nature's own hand. Yellowstone, a land too impatient to live just one life at a time. Here, ages of fire and ice have been combined into a surrealistic scene of lush greens and crystal pools. And stark fossil forests cast an eerie spell over the land. But the spell can be abruptly broken by an elk, by a bear, or a buffalo, once again proud and free to run without fear in the safety of this refuge. Yellowstone, a true panorama of the ages. This land was still being formed by the ages of fire and ice, when a new element came to leave its mark: man. From the north came man. Primitive tribes forged their way through ice-locked lands, slowly pushing southward. Their history is the history of all men. From wandering nomads, they settled to till the soil and to build. Centuries ago, Indians settled this semi-arid land. Men who revered all living things. Deeply allied with nature, grateful for its fruits, and awed by its power. From the east came man, explorer, missionary, planter, pirate. The placid harbors of the Caribbean gave birth to ships of every flag, ships of slave and rum, links between world, old and new. Where crumbled ruins revived the age of storehouses laden with booty from newfound lands, of forts that thrust stone chests to sea and challenge all to shimmering lust for riches, torn from new world stores to grace coffers of old. A glittering harvest passed through these stony arms, fulfilling greedy dreams of newfound lands. All marks of man that once stood as alien monuments, now one with this land. Symbols not of riches taken from the new world, but those of which came to it, of the old world culture that cloaks our southern lands and lends soul to the wealth of our heritage. To the north, the finger of Cape Cod stretching 70 sandy miles out into the sea, and a millennium into time, beckoned other men, other civilizations, Norsemen almost 1,000 years before Columbus. It saw the pilgrims first walk on American soil. They strolled this beach and saw these sights. And many followed. Men who wrote a history of sail and sea, the pleasure and peril of the trackless steep, of clipper ships and whaling boats that brought back their fill of the bountiful sea, and of times paid their due in unfathomable ways. Stories etched on ocean floors and sprayed upon the sandy shore, evoked only by these time-worn stones, faithfully standing guard to empty graves. The remembering ground. Tribute to those who went down to the sea, to those who would never return. In Quincy, Massachusetts, stands a home that serves as a remembering ground. The Adams House. Tribute to those who strived for democracy. The house quietly echoes the past, for the house was loved, as was the land, by all it sheltered. John Adams, one of the 5 who drafted the Declaration of Independence and helped choose the motto of this land, E pluribus unum, out of many, one. By Abigail, his wife, the only woman in our history to be the wife of one president and the mother of another. John Quincy Adams, her son, another president, another generation dedicated to democracy. On the same day in 1826, John Adams and his friend, Thomas Jefferson, died, each thinking the other lived on. It was July the 4th. These generations helped to build our shrine of freedom. If there could be but one shrine of freedom, it would be here, Independence Hall. These walls have heard the founders of our country. They have heard Washington accept command of the Continental Army and the roll call that approved our Declaration of Independence. Proclaim liberty throughout the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. This is the peal of the Liberty Bell. The call that rose above the battle sounds at Yorktown and led our men on to victory and on to democracy, though times came when the call was muted. Less than 100 years later, its message of unity and freedom was muffled by the din of uneasy states clamoring to secede. In this quiet little village of Harper's Ferry, nestled in the gap where the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers flow together, some of the first sounds of discord were heard. It was here that a fiery-eyed John Brown chose to incite a rebellion among the slaves. It was here that rebellion failed. The noose of death was laid on John Brown's neck, but his legend lived on. And short years later, Union soldiers added new words to an old hymn. John Brown's body lies a mouldering in the grave. His soul goes marching on. John Brown's raid was but a symptom of the seething unrest that gripped the land, a madness that pitted brother against brother, that filled the air with the sound of rifles, the flash of sabers, and the thunder of cannon, and left the blooded mark of man through this land. Echoes of the cries of battle and the roar of cannon still stalk this land. Names once lost in the dusty pages of history stand as guardians of those days when this land was a house divided. Manassas, where was heard, "Look, there stands Jackson like a stone wall. Rally behind the Virginians." Where blue and gray twice locked in a battle to the death, but death delayed to hobble across the land, ever restless, ever demanding. Antietam, where crimson day marred forever lane and rill and felled thousands. For 2 years, the madness continued. Then, Gettysburg, where the Southern sword was thrust into the North. There still echoes the conflict of 3 summer days. From ridges and hills to wheat fields and orchards, a torn and ravaged trail of desperate men regrouped for one final effort, Pickett's charge. And 3 days of battle ended in the retreating shadow of a proud man who held high his gray head and led his defeated troops down the long 2-year trail to Appomattox. The cannons were quieted, and the sound of clashing swords was stilled, and peace again sheltered the land, and brother joined brother anew to finish tasks that began here and to reap the fruits of this vast plain. This land, both scarred and nurtured by the mark of man. The agony of war is but a single thread in the rich fabric of our heritage. The worth of our past is measured in many ways. Each man of the past, in his way, has given us what we have today. A silent witness to the passage of time. A haunting reminder of man's bond with nature, wherein both change and are changed. For this land and man are but one. And girded streets cannot lock out the lilt of spring's bud, or drone of ocean's roar, or melody of summer's breeze. Only man can sing its song, or love its beauty,